What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Action Network podcast presented by BetMGM. I am your host, Chris Raybon of the Action Network, and today we've got our NFL player projections episode for week number 12. On this show, we'll run through our top 5 at each skill position, discuss some players we're high and low on this week, and of course, throw out some player props for each position as well. Here to break it down with me, one of the top fantasy football rankers in the game, the odds maker, Sean Kerner. Sean, what's going on?
What's up? Had a really good week. I hit an amazing prop. I think I got lucky on this one, but it was Ty Chandler, longest run over 10.5 yards. And I cashed on that fake punt.
Fake punt.
Yeah. 31-yard
Nice.
run. I'll take it, though. But yeah, had a really good week. How about you?
Yeah, I got back on the right track. That fake punt helped me too, because I had Vikings plus, I think it's 2.5 or something like that. I think it was 2.5. So yeah, man.
Nice.
But we got to get into the positions for each. For week 12, and we'll start with quarterbacks. So who you got in your top 5?
Yeah, so I got Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, and Josh Allen.
Yeah, I think that's the same. I got Hurts, Mahomes, Jackson, Prescott, Allen. Yeah, same top 5. It was good to see Josh Allen get right a little bit, but that Philly KC game was rough for quarterbacks. I mean, I guess Hurts got the rushing touchdowns, but there wasn't much passing yardage to go around, and then that drop. But hopefully those guys get back on track this week. Who you high on?
I'm high on Trevor Lawrence, who opens the week inside my top 10 against the Texans. And, he's had an up and down season, and he's been pretty disappointing for the people who drafted him. I think he was, QB 8 in ADP entering the season. But last week, he was the top scoring quarterback thanks to 2 touchdown passes to Calvin Ridley, and he ran 2 scores himself. And I think, this matchup against the Texans is a good one. They rank 21st in DVOA against the pass, but and they've allowed an average of 290 passing yards a game since week 5. But more importantly, just CJ Stroud in the offense just keeps lighting it up. So other teams kind of have to keep up by throwing the ball. So that's one of the reasons why I like Lawrence. And it was good to see him bounce back last week after that brutal game against the Niners. So he's just inside my top 10 this week, opening as my QB 10.
Yeah, I'm high on Lawrence as well. I think that matchup is one of the better ones for fantasy production. You got a close matchup indoors, 2 defenses that are not great against the pass. So I think that could be a back and forth affair there. But yeah, I was surprised how high Lawrence. He's my QB 8. So
nice.
Yeah, I was surprised how high he was to open the week. I'm high on Josh Dobbs again. He is inside my top 12 this week, going up against the Chicago Bears. And really, it's just a mixture of his scrambling ability and the fact that, going up against this Bears defense, it's not a great pass defense. They're average against the run, below average against the pass. And Minnesota, they go a little faster than Dobbs was going out there in Arizona too. So you got a few more plays than you would usually get from him. So I have him as my QB 11 to start the week. So
nice.
Yeah,
he's my QB 8.
Some Dobbs yet again.
My
geez, yes.
Yeah, he's over Stroud and Tua. Maybe that's a problem. But I don't know. I kind of like it. He's been the QB3 ever since he joined Minnesota. So, he's playing well. Like you said, for him, it's just the rushing upside is just massive, and he's been tapping into that. Can't wait to see how this offense looks once Justin Jefferson returns, which it sounds like, unfortunately, it's going to be week 14 after their bye, but he'll be even better once he gets JJ back.
Yeah, I think that's really when things are going to take off. But even just what he's been doing now, he's been solid, getting those rushing touchdowns, giving you some rushing yardage, some passing yardage, and definitely a step up, I think, from what he was doing in Arizona. but who are you low on?
I'm low on Justin Herbert against the Ravens. He opens up as my QB 14. And last week he actually ended up having a really solid game. He finished as a QB 3, mainly thanks to his 73 rushing yards. We can't really rely on that most weeks with Herbert, but man, his wide receivers definitely let him down, including Keenan Allen, who dropped a wide open touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
I think the sun was in his eyes. I think that was an issue for a lot of players
Yeah.
in that game, but Quentin Johnson also dropped a wide open play that might have gone for 40 plus, maybe even a touchdown. I had Justin Herbert under 261 passing yards, and at the time of that incompletion, he had 260. So thank you, Quentin Johnson, for dropping that. But just, with Mike Williams, Josh Palmer on the IR, and now, Gerald Everett and Jalen Guyton are even out. The injuries have just made it really tough for Herbert. It's really hard to just rely on Keenan Allen all the time. But this week, he has a brutal matchup against the Ravens that, again, have allowed the fewest fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. So it's just a tough spot for Herbert. This has nothing to do with Herbert. It's just a matchup and his wide receivers letting him down. So yeah, he's my QB 14 to open the week.
Yeah, I'm low on Herbert as well. He's my QB 12, so I guess he's kind of like right there, on that fringe. But yeah, I think he's a guy that, ideally you would go somewhere else instead of starting him this week, even though he's got that name value. I'm low on Sam Howell this week, going up against the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, this guy, I don't know what's going on with him against the Giants, but it's not even about that. It's about this Dallas defense is one of the best pass defenses in the league. They're allowing the second fewest net passing yards, just 157 per game, and just 178 regular passing yards per game. So that's, for a guy like Sam Howell, who is not always going to put up the touchdowns, especially in a matchup where they're 11-point underdogs, I think it is, with a pretty low implied total. You're kind of banking on yardage with him, but this Dallas team is tough to get yardage against. And, Dallas can play a lot of man coverage just like that Giant team that give him a lot of trouble, except Dallas does it a lot better and gets a lot more pressure. And that's Sam Howell's other issue, is taking sacks. So I don't think it's going to be a great Sam Howell week yet again, because it's this pressure defense, top two defense. It's just not what you want to be investing in Howell, even though he's got that, he usually puts up a ton of passing yards. I think you have to lay off him in this division matchup.
Yeah, you called that Commanders Giants game just being weird.
Yep.
I had Barkley under 18.5 rush attempts, and if you told me he was going to be the highest scoring running back of the week and they would have a commanding lead the entire game, I would have just thought, that prop is toast. And I remember I set, what was my line for Tommy DeVito, like 120 yards passing or something?
Like 134 or something like that?
Yeah, and with a leading game script, I mean, he looked like Tom Brady, threw for almost 300 yards. Just truly bizarre, but I guess you called it. Just, you can't, it's impossible to project those Giants-Commanders matchups. Just weird things happen.
Oh, I mean, it's pretty easy to project. Giants win. And
Giants win.
weird things happen for the Commanders. That's really the issue, because it's like, Sam Howell looks great every other week. He's throwing, 3 touchdowns and 300 yards and this and that. And then come play the Giants and it looks ugly. But I mean, I think the Cowboys can kind of replicate that. So, I would stay away. I have them outside my top 15. Let's see. Oh, yeah. So my turn to set up quarterback prop.
How did we do last week?
I went 2-0 and you went, I think, 1-1.
Oh, okay.
So, but we were,
I thought I might have got shut out or something.
Nah, I got the right side of the Metcalf locket, and then I got
I know that one.
Yeah. And then I forget which one you didn't hit, but you had 1 out of 2. I had 2 out of 2. Let's see what I'm gonna do here. Quarterback. Let's go Tua, because Tua is the QB 11 consensus this week. So,
Yeah.
people that have been kind of starting him all year. Now you're going up against the Jets. So I'm going to let's go passing. Actually, no, let's go rank. Let's go rank like you did that one time. I like that one.
All right.
I'm just setting this off the top of my head though. So
I know. I'm trying. I haven't run that sim yet, but I'll try to think of what it could be. All right.
So he's the QB 11 in consensus. Let's go 11 and a half. Let's just take his rank. Take his rank.
Okay.
Will we go over or under or better or worse than QB 11?
Oh no, I know exactly what you mean by that. So like last week, if I'm looking at last week, my QB 11 was like Jared Goff. He had about a 50% chance of finishing inside the top 11, but that's because Burrow had already stunk it up, and Lamar had a pretty good game. Oh, every team is playing this week, so it's going to be a little bit tougher. It's going to be a little bit tougher for the number 11 QB to finish in the top 11, so I'll go over. Like, he's going to finish outside of the top 11.
So would you recommend people, like, what would you recommend people do?
He's definitely like, he should be ranked inside the top 11, but just with variance, like his sweet spot of like where he'll actually finish is like 13, 14. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like slightly above average. Yeah. And like, it's going to be a 10% chance he finishes in that exact slot. But just with QB, there's a lot of variance. Just some scrub ranked out of the top 20 can, throw for 2 touchdowns and sneak in there. So that's what I mean by that. But if you have him, you're starting him. He's certainly a low end QB1, despite, the tougher matchup against the Jets. But based on your prop, I'm going to have to go outside of the top 11.
That makes sense. But yeah, it's a tough week for some of these, Herbert, Tua, not used to seeing these guys outside the top 10.
Where do you have Justin Fields? That's when I was curious.
And I have him 7, so he's up there.
Okay.
He's up there.
Same.
Yeah. I mean, he had I think it was 46 rushing yards in the first matchup against Minnesota, and he only played 35 snaps. So he was just running all over the place in that matchup. So he should be good for that. All right, let's go to a running back who we got in the top 5 for week number 12.
Let me see. I got Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Alvin Kamara, Travis Etienne, and Austin Eckler.
Yep, same ones, except I got CMC, Taylor, Etienne 3rd, Kamara 4th, and then Eckler 5th.
Nice.
Who you high on?
I'm high on Derrick Henry. He's my RB6 to open the week, and I was low on him. Yeah, well, is that like really high? I know.
He's still in the teens for me. I mean, he great matchup, but wow, that's a pretty big jump.
Good. I love it. I got some spicy ranks to open the week. And yeah, I was low on him last week, just because it was a tough matchup and, a potential negative game script. So sure enough, he put up a dud. But, much better matchup this week against the Panthers that ranked dead last in DVOA against the run. And the Titans are 3.5 point favorites. So I think that's just massive for Henry. Perfect bounce back spot. I think the Titans only ran like 38 plays last week or something just insanely low. So we have to kind of throw out last week's game. This is a completely different spot. They're going to obviously run a lot more than 38 plays this week. So yeah, he opens the week as my RB6. Maybe we get one more patented Derrick Henry game this season, and this could be it. So I am super high on him this week. And then the other guy is obviously Zach Charbonnet. I mentioned on Convince Me, he's been one of the better backups in the league. But Walker, Kenneth Walker had done nothing wrong to like warrant losing too much work to Charbonnet. But with Walker potentially missing some time here, Charbonnet is going to push, low end RB1 value. He completely took over the backfield once Walker went down last week. I could see DJ Dallas and maybe Kenny McIntosh eat into his receiving work a bit, or spell him to give him a breather. But this reminds me of in the past few seasons when Dalvin Cook or like Zeke Elliott would miss time. Like I think you would too. Like have Alexander Madison, Tony Pollard ranked even higher than where the starter would be, just because the backups aren't commanding as much touches as they would. So that's kind of what's going on here. Charbonnet is going to dominate the workload. And, even though it's a tough matchup against the Niners, I still have him as a low end RB1. So I have him as the RB11 open the week. He did disappoint a bit with his expanded role last week, but I think he'll get best of both worlds here with some really good volume, and then he's going to flash those skills he's been showing all season. So love Charbonnet this week if Walker does in fact miss.
Yeah, it looks like Walker's gonna miss. You think Charbonnet gets like the third, like the hurry up, all that, or you think they use DJ Dallas at all in that like pass game role? Because like Charbonnet was taking a lot of the pass snaps from Walker.
Yeah, and I think like it was up until a couple weeks ago, DJ Dallas was kind of still the third down back and 2-minute offense. But then Charbonnet picked all that work up, I want to say last week or like the past 2 games. And then last week he was kind of doing it all. So yeah, I could see DJ Dallas. If he's going to take anything, it would be, some of the passing work. But either way, I think Charbonnet is going to be running over a 60% routes run rate, if I had to guess, somewhere in that range. So he's going to be getting most of the carries, most of the early down work, and still most of the receiving down work. So yeah, I still think Dallas will mix in on sort of the passing downs, but that's almost every running back has some guy, taking some snaps. So yeah, I still think Charbonnet is going to be even more of a workhorse back than Walker was.
Yeah, last week, Charbonnet. So Walker went out and he only had played on 7% of the pass snaps. Charbonnet played on 86%, and then Dallas played on 12%. So, it looks like, and then, they run a route about 80% of those snaps. So, yeah, you're looking at a route participation rate, 65-70% range. Yep. So, time for a breakout game from Charbonnet.
Yep.
I mean, because if the Seahawks don't just get dusted.
Yeah, well, you could get a bunch of dump offs.
Looking a little dangerous. Yeah. All right. I'm high on Rachaad White this week. Seems like every week now. I mean, I feel like he's getting slept on, but he's inside my top 10 this week, going up against the Colts. He's just been doing it in the running game and the passing game, and the Colts are allowing the 4th most fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. So this is another great matchup for White. And the fact that he was able to produce in a negative game script against the 49ers, he still got a rushing touchdown in that game. Edmonds is mixing about 20% of the time, but White seems to be getting all the high leverage carries, goal line, pass down work. So not too many backs that are producing at the level White is right now. So great second season for him after really was unimpressive, I think, much of that rookie year, but a lot of that probably had to do with the offensive line, which is a little bit better this year. So yeah, I have Rachaad White as my RB number 9 to open the week.
Nice. Yeah, he's definitely a low end RB1 now. And yeah, I think a lot of the inefficiency on the early down work just is on the offensive line. It's not like any of the backup running backs have been able to do much better. So he has really become just a true workhorse back, especially, in the passing game. That's where he gets most of his value. But yeah, he's definitely like a low end RB1 now.
Who you low on?
I'm low on Josh Jacobs against the Chiefs. He's my RB17 to open the week. I just think he gets a huge downgrade in a potential trailing game script. He had been banking on just a ton of volume in the run game during the Raiders' 2-game win streak. He just hasn't really been nearly as efficient as last year. I mean, he was one of the best running backs in the league last year, but he's been way less involved as a pass catcher with Aiden O'Connell under center. He's only been running a route, on 50 to 55% of O'Connell's dropbacks, and O'Connell hasn't been checking it down much to him either. Jacobs only has 3 catches over the last 3 games, and I've said O'Connell's like shades of Jameis Winston. He's just gonna be chucking it up downfield. He's not gonna be dumping it off to Josh Jacobs. So O'Connell had a 10.3 average intended air yards last week, fourth highest, and he threw 3 picks. So he's a yellow ball kind of guy. Not a great spot for Jacobs. Even if they get down big, I just don't expect them to get too many checkdowns. So this is just a really bad spot for Jacobs. So he's more of a mid-range RB2. He's still going to get a huge workload, but he has a much lower floor with the Raiders being nearly 10-point underdogs here.
Yeah, and they've been playing some lower scoring games, the Chiefs and the Raiders too. So yeah, it might not be, sometimes Chiefs Raiders they can get up there in the score, but not the way these two teams have been playing this year. I am low on James Cook. So he last week was pretty productive. Had 17 carries, over 70 yards. Did some nice things in the pass game, but his underlying usage was concerning in the first game. Without Ken Dorsey as the OC, he seeded the hurry up work to Ty Johnson, and Ty Johnson was mixing in just throughout the game, which we really haven't seen before. So in a game where Buffalo is not in control and they don't run as many plays, I think Cook's numbers are going to suffer because his percentage of the designed backfield carries was down to just 55%, which was for the season he's around 60%, but up until a couple games ago he was hovering in the mid 70s for the weeks 7 through 9, and then week 10 it was the fumbles, he got benched, so he had 55%, but that was understandable. But then last week 55% again, and even more concerning I think for him is that his route participation rate was down to 37% last week, which is that in the game before where it's 33%. That's pretty much as low as he's gone this season. But Ty Johnson was up to 17%. Murray stayed at his usual 30%, but it just seems like they're looking to mix somebody else in with Cook. And Johnson, he is more of a kind of a pass down guy. So Cook was always saving his if he didn't get many carries in a game, he won't always, because Buffalo not always super run heavy, though. I'm sure they'll try to run a little more now, but it's concerning that he's losing passing down work as well as carries, a carry share, because going up against Philly, they're the best run defense in the league. You're not really going to get much on the ground, you got to figure, so you have to do it through the air. So I have him as my RB 33 to start the week, and he's still about 28 in consensus. So I think Cook is more of like a flex kind of fringe starter this week.
Yeah, I mean, Ty Johnson mixing in, making this sort of a 3-0 committee was not ideal, and they still have Leonard Fournette on the practice squad. So if they call him up, he might eat into his early down work, goal line work. So long term, it's not good news for James Cook.
Yeah, it's sell if you can. I would sell before he plays Philly, honestly. All right, let's what do you let me see again. All right, time for a prop. What you got?
You know damn well where I'm going with this. Zach Charbonnet. Let's go total rushing and receiving yards against the Niners. I'll have to make sure I set this way too high too. I'm going to set it at 82.5 yards.
Ooh, let's see. 82.5. Let's see what I got here. It'd be funny if Walker plays. I just take the under. And
no, the stipulation is Kenneth Walker is not playing in this game. He has to be inactive for this to be a wager.
Gotcha, guy. I'm just joking. Let's see. Yeah, I have him a little bit under that, so I'm going to go under. I have him in the high 70s in this one. I do think he'll get catches, but I think there's a bit of variance or volatility, I should say, with the rushing yardage projection because Seattle has struggled against San Francisco. They lost all 3 matchups last year, didn't really put up many points, so you could get into a negative game script, and it's kind of all bets are off. So I'll go under, but I know he's that's your boy, and it is his time to shine. It is his time to shine.
It's time. And Gino's fine, right? I know they did some tests, but he should be good to go.
I don't know. I mean, it sounds like it, but they haven't confirmed it, and it's a little sketch. Like,
yeah.
First of all, he like left the game. He came back in the game. He makes one throw and then runs the ball because there wasn't like he couldn't hear the headset. Like, what if he just couldn't throw again and that's why he ran? Like I don't know. Like, it's a little shaky. And then Pete Carroll's like, well, I think he should be good to go, but he hasn't said anything definitive, so he's not going to practice till Wednesday. We're recording this on Tuesday, so.
And they play Thursday.
I'm definitely monitoring that. Yep, I'm definitely monitoring that because it seems like you could get some shenanigans. But if Drew Lock starts, I think you go run heavy then in that case.
Yeah.
If Drew Lock, as long as you can,
as long as you can, exactly.
The holiday season right around the corner, and it's about to get busy. Don't let that stop you from sticking to your habit and being the best version of yourself. That's where our friends at Caldera Lab come in. 1 minute in the morning and 1 minute at night can be all the difference you need for clearer skin. These guys are the best in the skincare game. And with an easy routine, keep your face looking fresh no matter your schedule. It's just 3 steps. 1, the clean slate, which is a face wash to start and end your day. 2, the base layer, which is a daily moisturizer to hydrate your skin. And 3, the good, which is an eye serum you can put on at night to help your skin look tighter and smoother. Plus, what's a better gift than clear skin? Join the 100,000 men who trust Caldera Lab to show your best self this holiday season. And just for our listeners, we have an exclusive deal. Use code TAN at calderalab.com for 20% off right now. That's 20% off with code TAN at calderalab.com. Make unforgettable first impressions with Caldera Lab. All right, Sean, wide receiver, who you got in your top 5 for week 12?
I got Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, and Keenan Allen.
I got, Tyreek, CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, Keenan Allen, Amon-Ra St. Brown. So same top 5, a little different order.
A little shuffled.
But, a little shuffled, Who are you high on?
I'm high on DJ Moore. He opens the week as my wide receiver 12. And I kind of alluded to this a couple weeks ago, but he just gets a massive boost with Justin Fields back under center. And whenever Tyson Bagent's under center, he gets a downgrade, of course. But sure enough, with Justin Fields' return last week, Moore went off for 7 catches, 96 yards, and a touchdown. So that's 4 straight games with Fields under center where he's gone for over 100 yards and or a touchdown. So he's just back in business with Fields under center and opens week as a low-end wide receiver 1 for me.
Yeah, he's my wide receiver 13. I like him as well. I think Fields definitely does. Just throwing downfield more, I think really helps. DJ, I am high on, rinse and repeat. Tank Dell again.
Yeah, might as well.
Like every week, I feel like this guy's ranked too low. He is my wide receiver 9 this week. He's wide receiver 21 in consensus, going up against Jacksonville. And in points per game, he's a wide receiver 12 in half PPR, the wide receiver 15 in PPR. But that includes, a couple games where he got hurt and that first game of the year where he only played less than 50% of the snaps. But he's been in there, 80 to 95% of the time every week these days. Jacksonville runs zone coverage at a top 5 rate. They're one of the zone heaviest defenses in the league. Tank Dell's averaging 2.9 yards per route against zone. That is 6th best out of 94 qualified wide receivers. And it's about a little over a half yard more than he averages against man, which is still great at 2.3. But last 3 games, 35 targets, 20 catches, 319 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He's had 10 or more targets, 6 or more receptions in each of the last 3. And in the first meeting against Jacksonville, 5 catches for $145 and a touch on 7 targets. So this guy has just been balling, and he's part of the reason CJ Stroud is playing so well too. Because as great as Stroud is, some of the routes that Dell runs and gives Stroud a place to go with the ball and like 3rd and longs, or at that end of that 2-minute drive to beat Tampa Bay, like that. Those are some special routes that he's running and getting open with. So Tank Dell each and every week. You got like this guy. I don't want to not like it's not Tyreek Hill, but it kind of reminds me of like that type of situation where he just kind of like a middle round draft pick came out of nowhere and just each and every week putting up numbers. He passes the eye test. You just got to get used to having him as a wide receiver 1 these days. So Tank Dell, and then also another rookie, Demario Douglas. He is inside my top 40. He's just outside the top 50 in consensus, but he's averaging 5 catches, 55 yards per game over his last 4 games. And the Giants run man coverage at a top 5 rate, and Douglas leads the Patriots in receiving yardage against man coverage. And that's interesting because he wasn't even a full-time player for much of the year into this last month. He's also leading them in yards per route against man at 1.9, and the Giants allowing the second most slot fantasy points to opposing wide receivers, and the 3rd most targets to the slot, 3rd most receptions, 3rd most yards as well. And Douglas plays about 50-60% of his time in the slot. So like Douglas this week as well.
How would your projection change, if at all, if it's Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi?
It really doesn't at this point. I mean, it's just
right.
Low passing yardage for both. It's that you're not really changing much of anything. I mean, maybe Bailey Zappi throws fewer picks. That doesn't really change anything for the receivers. So
right.
Yeah. No. What about you? Does it change anything for you?
No, it doesn't change anything. Just worth mentioning, just in case there is a QB change. That our ranks and projections probably won't change much.
Yeah, I actually have Zappi projected for like whatever. Like I have Mac Jones projected for his actual snap rate, like with the benchings, and then I have Zappi projected for the rest of those snaps. So
nice.
I actually have some Zappi in there already. But who you low on?
I want to just mention 2 receivers that will take a hit from recent quarterback changes, and the first is Garrett Wilson. He's my wide receiver 24. And, Zach Wilson's getting benched for Tim Boyle. Not that Zach Wilson deserves to be a starting quarterback right now, but he had been playing a bit better of late and had really good chemistry with Garrett Wilson. Wilson had 4 straight games of 80 or more yards, with Garrett, with Zach under center. And Tim Boyle's awful. I mean, he's not an upgrade over Zach Wilson. Maybe he's a lateral move. But I'm not sure this will help Wilson in any way. Boyle might want to check down to running backs or tight ends more. It just could shake up, the target distribution a bit. I just don't see this helping Wilson. So Wilson only caught 2 passes for 9 yards last week among all the, quarterback turmoil. So he opens the week, as a low end wide receiver 2. This is just not a great situation for Wilson. The whole season hasn't been after Aaron Rodgers went down, but this is just another blow to Wilson's value, in my opinion. And the other is Jamar Chase. He's my wide receiver 22, which is just crazy to say, but he gets, massive drop off with Joe Burrow having his season ending injury. Jake Browning is a below average backup. And he's also going to be more willing to lean on his legs. He had, 4 rush attempts for 40 yards. He's a bit more of a scrambler than Burrow is, obviously. So this is also going to be a close, low-scoring, disgusting game against the Steelers, where the Bengals can lean on the run game more, have a conservative game plan. They also might get T. Higgins back, so that's going to ding, Chase's target share. They're still going to dial up plenty of targets for Chase, and he's, more than talented to overcome the situation. But having said all that, he still opens the week just outside of my top 20.
Yeah, I'm a little higher on Chase. I think I'm lower than Wilson on Wilson. I'm at 28 for Wilson, but I'm at 14 for Chase. I just,
It's fair.
I feel like they'll find ways to scheme him the ball. Like it's Jamar Chase, like they'll. I think
Yeah,
he's the guy that at least. I mean, I'm not saying he'll be super efficient or anything like that, but I'll see. I could see a way them kind of feeding him, designing things for him to get the ball in his hands. They'll
totally.
probably give him like a couple rush attempts and things like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a little higher, but point taken. Yeah, it's. I mean, it's just a rough week. All these backup quarterbacks getting inserted, and I mean, sheesh. And then you have like what I think it's 3 or 4 games below a total of 35 or 30,
Yeah.
like there's a Giant game. There's the Bronco Brown game is like 35 and a half for the total, and then that Steelers game you mentioned. I mean, it's ugly. The Titans game is I think 36 or something like that. It's ugly, man.
And Cooper Kupp is hurt. Just these tier 1 wide receivers have just taken a beating this week.
Yeah, but for the prop, I know where I want to go because this is a really interesting projection. So Michael Thomas is going to miss. It looks like he's going to miss at least this week. Looks like he's going to miss more time than that. So does Rashid Shaheed become the number 2, or does he continue in his same role? And either way, I mean, that should free up some targets for him because Michael Thomas was catching like 5 balls a game. So let's go Rashid Shaheed receiving yards, 45 and a half.
Ooh, that's about where I have it. He just has a wide range of outcomes, so it's going to be 80 or 20. I'm gonna go with over. I think that's a good line. Okay. I think A.T. Perry is definitely like taking over the complete Michael Thomas role, but he's going to command fewer targets, and we all know that Derek Carr loves Shaheed, so I think they will connect for like at least one deep ball here to just get over it. So I would have set it right around here, but I'll lean over here for sure.
All right, let's go to tight end. Who we got in the top 5?
Let's see. I got Travis Kelce, TJ Hawkinson, George Kittle, Trey McBride, and Dalton Kincaid.
Yep, I got Kelce. I got Kittle actually number 2.
Nice. Well deserved.
Kelce, Kittle, Hawkinson, Trey McBride, and Dalton Kincaid. Who you high on?
I'm going George Kittle. There's nothing groundbreaking here, but I've been probably a bit too low on him recently. And he's been the tight end 2 on the season. He had those 2 just complete duds earlier in the season, but he's been amazing in all the other games. So with Mark Andrews, out for potentially the rest of the season, Kittle's going to be a top 3 tight end the rest of the season. We can't fault the tight end just for having a couple bad games. They're all going to have bad games at some point, I guess, for maybe Travis Kelce. But he just, with all the weapons and the 49ers passing game, he's going to have sort of a wide range of outcomes, but he's been such a stud that I finally come around. I think I've been a little bit too rough on him recently. So yeah, I've, made some adjustments and he's inside my top 3, although you have him in your top 2. So you're technically a little bit higher on him than me.
Yeah. I mean, I think the big thing is it used to be, this was a low volume pass attack, but Purdy's been so efficient that he's averaging close to 270 passing yards per game. And, if you go over the recent games, I think it's even more than that. So it's not like before where, they were just like, okay, Purdy, he's just kind of feeling him out. They're only letting him throw like 25 times a game. And he had to have this ridiculous efficiency to support, more than like one guy at a time. But now, as we've seen, Debo, Kittle, and Ayuk can go all, and McCaffrey can all go off now in the same week. It's so this San Francisco offense has come a long way, I think, and Brock Purdy really establishing himself as a guy who's not just a system quarterback, or if he is a system quarterback, he's one of the greatest system quarterback ever.
Yeah,
because he's got this offense putting up numbers. So that's why Kittle's there for me, because his target share does take a hit with everyone healthy, but
Mhm.
he's still, I believe it's still around, the explosiveness is still there. So he's averaging like 3.5 catches with everyone healthy, but it's for like, 60 something yards
Right.
because he's just been so explosive, getting a lot. They're setting him up for a lot of yards after the catch. And you can't really pay too much attention to him as an opposing defense because you got to worry about Ayuk, you got to worry about Samuel, and then Kittle's the tight end, so he's gonna be blocking a lot. So it's just kind of by default he's the guy that can get these explosive plays when everyone else is covered.
Yep.
So yeah, I think Kittle's gonna continue to produce. That was the same guy I was high on. I'm pretty much in line with everything else. So we could jump right to the guys are low on, and it's also the same guy. So take it away.
Really? Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Pat Fryermuth. He's my tight end 24, and he returned from the IR last week, and he caught one pass for 7 yards. Obviously, an awful game for him. But that wasn't a spot where we should have been playing him anyway. It was against the Browns. We weren't sure on his workload, but the underlying usage was very concerning. He only ran around on 39% of Pickett's dropbacks, only saw a target on 8% of those routes. And this isn't a passing offense I'm, rushing to invest in, especially this time of year. So he might not return to low end tight end one value this season, but he's certainly worth monitoring. But with guys like McBride, Kincaid, even like Taysom Hill emerging as every week tight end ones, Fryermuth's a guy that's kind of off my radar anyway. And after last week, that hasn't changed. If anything, he moved down a bit. So Pat Fryermuth is someone I'm very low on this week.
Yeah, same here. And it's tough because with Pittsburgh, there's going to be weeks where they don't even support one fantasy viable pass catcher. And, any way you slice it, Fryermuth is behind Deontay Johnson and George Pickens. So, now that his route participation rate is a little bit lower than it was last year, and even the second half of the year, his rookie year as well, it's just really tough to rely on him. Like he'll have like probably one or two random big games in there, but it's a DFS like dart throw at this point. There's no real way you're going to be able to predict it on a week-to-week basis in fantasy. I mean, his game logs are something crazy this year. He appeared in 5 games, right? In 4 of those games, he's had 7 or fewer receiving yards.
Yeah.
Like one.
This is a
like,
Kenny
but
Pickett tweet.
Bro, Matt Canada was fired, so hey, maybe they do change, but it's like the targets too. It's like 4 targets, 3 yards in his first game, 1 target, 2 yards in his second game. Then he had 4 targets for 41 and a touchdown, his only good game. Then 4 targets, 7 yards, and then 1 target, 7 yards last game. Like that is, I don't remember the last time I've seen like a legit starting tight end do that poorly. And I know he was kind of in and out of some games, but man, I mean that's just Kenny Pickett. You got to do better, bro.
Sheesh. Yeah. Well, I mean, if they keep giving Jaylen Warren the ball, that's going to really limit the passing game too, because he's going to just take it to the house every time. By the way, I just found out that
Matt
I just found out that
I said it.
No, I know that I just found out now. I didn't realize that. So thanks.
Nice.
It's about damn time.
Yeah, sir. That was that's the big news this morning. But I was just gonna say, I'm pretty sure we had some good calls on that pod because I remember we were talking about Jaylen Warren last week, and even against that tough Cleveland defense, he managed to come through. But where are you going for the tight end prop?
I'm gonna go with Isaiah Likely. Let's talk about him. So he's facing the Chargers. He's replacing Mark Andrews. I'm going to go with 35.5 receiving yards.
Under. I have his average right at 35. His median would be like in the little like 30, 31-ish, 32 for me, at least right now. And, so I'm being a little bit more conservative with him just because you saw Lamar Jackson start targeting his wide receivers a lot more when Mark Andrews went out. And I think in years past, this was a very tight end centric offense. They didn't really have any other wide receivers to speak of that they could kind of target heavily. But now
Sure.
I don't really think likely he's going to get the same. I think he's going to get the snaps as a 1-for-1 replacement, but I don't necessarily think he gets, anything close to the same target share. So I'm trying to be careful not to just blow him up and put him in tight end 8 or something like that, because I do think we should be a little bit more conservative, because you got Zay Flowers there, Odell Beckham starting to come into his own, Aguilar makes a play here and there, Bateman is finally being healthy. So what do you think of likely this week?
No, I think that's fair. I think maybe in hindsight his median should be just a tad lower. He's the kind of guy that probably has a wider range of outcomes, just given the situation. So like his median may be a little bit lower, but if a book is offering 50 plus yards at 3-1, maybe consider that, because he has a high ceiling. So I agree. And he's my tight end 11. I think, was there a game this year that he filled in for Andrews? No. But last year, whenever he filled in for Andrews, I think he did pretty good. But I think he did really good. But like you said, they have Bateman healthy. Odell Beckham's playing really good right now. So there's more options in the wide receiver game. Oh, and Flowers, obviously. So there's probably just more options outside of him. So he has a wide range of outcomes. I think he's definitely worth a flyer as a low end tight end 1. But maybe for his player prop, his median is just a bit lower. So I think his prop should probably be in the low 30s. I'm guessing it'll be like 32.5 if I had to guess.
Yeah, his target rate per route is 10.3% this year, which is very low. Mark Andrews is 21.6, so it's like half, like less than half of Andrews. So that's just kind of why I'm a little bit. But I agree. I think he has a high ceiling, and especially if you're an underdog in your matchup, I think you definitely have nothing to lose by starting him. But I still wouldn't start him over like a Jake Ferguson or guys like that. In that top 10,
more established. I wonder that 10% target rate. I wonder how many of those routes Mark Andrews was also on the field.
That's a good question.
Yeah, we should probably look into that, because they do run 2 tight end sets quite a bit. But I'd be curious what his target rate is when Andrews was off the field and he was in on like 11 personnel or something. That might be a bit more telling. Because if both are on the field, obviously you're going to still want to target Andrews. But we'll have to find those splits somewhere.
Yeah, I think obviously it'll go up a bit, but not as much. It doesn't have as much room for growth as it did last year and all the years prior. All right, that is going to do it for our Week 12 NFL Player Projections episode of the Action Network podcast, presented by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. For more fantasy content from Sean and I, be sure to check out our full fantasy preview episode out a little later today over on the Fantasy Flex podcast channel. If you're into betting, Stuck and I will have our weekly betting episode on the Action Network podcast right here. That'll be out early this week, so on Wednesday. And also be sure to check out the Action Network Discord server if you want to chat. I know Sean is very active up in there, so check the link in the episode description for more information on that. ActionNetwork.com for all of our NFL fantasy and betting content. FantasyLabs.com for our DFS tools and models. Sean is on X at @_oddsmaker. I'm at Chris Raybon. We're at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Let's give this money.